What would happen if I stretch and lengthen this rubber band over and over again? Well, eventually it would become weak and loose and it wouldn't hold things together very well. Sort of like that pair of underwear at the bottom of your dresser drawers that's been around a little bit too long. You see, the same sort of thing can happen to muscles. Muscles are designed to function in an optimal length-tension relationship. If they're too long, they can become weak. And if they're too short, again, they don't function optimally. And so if you find yourself constantly stretching your hip or piriformis muscle via figure 4 stretches, hamstring stretches, constantly foam rolling, or maybe sitting on a tennis ball and it hurts so good in the moment, but the tightness and pain always comes back, then this is a sign that you may actually be overstretched. And so in this video, I'm going to show you how to tighten or shorten your piriformis in 3 simple steps. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching this video and you're not sure if you're dealing with piriformis syndrome, problems in the butt can be caused by many other things, check out my Better Than an MRI DIY diagnostic guide. It lays out my entire decision-making algorithm for figuring out the most likely source of back, butt, or sciatica problems. You can download it for free by clicking the link above. Hi everyone, this is Dr. Charlie Johnson, physical therapist, and as somebody who's worked with over 10,000 people dealing with back, butt, or sciatica problems, it's literally all I do. I need you to understand one key thing. Number one is that stretching, pulling point A and point B further apart, if you want to consider this your piriformis or your glute muscles, stretching as well as compression are really just forms of lengthening in disguise, all right? And so they're essentially the same thing. And so what we're going to do via this process I'm going to show you is exactly the opposite of what has not worked. So if you've tried different stretches or foam rolling or sitting on a tennis ball, for example, and they've hurt so good, which means that they're yucky, and they haven't worked, well then what's the opposite of all those things, all right? So the opposite of something that's yucky is yummy. We're gonna do motions that feel good and feel safe. The opposite of something that hasn't worked or not working is something that does work, and the opposite of lengthening is shortening or bringing 2 points closer together. And how do we do that? We can contract or squeeze, strengthen the muscles in the area instead of stretch or lengthen them. All right, so step 1 of this process to begin tightening or shortening the area of the piriformis, glutes, hip muscles is to remove the action of lengthening or stretching. So the absence of lengthening or stretching prevents you from continuing to overstretch, right? And so we want to consider that oftentimes you just don't know what you don't know, and there are certain ways that you may be lengthening or placing tension upon the buttock piriformis muscles in ways that, again, you're just not aware of. And this can come in 2 ways. Number 1, you may have been led to believe that you should do certain stretches to relieve your pain when actually it may be keeping you from healing. Number 2, there are probably certain things you're doing throughout your day that are just lengthening or stretching in disguise. So let's start with the things you may have been led to believe that you should do, the stretches that you should avoid or consider avoiding. Again, if you tried lots of different stretches and it's not working, you may want to cut them out. So here would be the common stretches that I would recommend you don't do because it's continuing to lengthen the tissue in that area. All right, so the first one would be a figure 4 stretch or any rendition of it. So figure 4 stretch, this can be done lying down like this, where you're often pulling up the knee to the opposite shoulder. Also, it can be done in a seated position. You don't have to do that. It can be done via a pigeon pose position. It can be done via standing position where you're putting your leg up and doing things like that. It can be done seated where you're not pulling the knee up to your shoulder, but you're leaning in to get a stretch in your buttock. There's so many ways within so many different exercise programs that this figure 4 motion shows up, all right? So I would cut out any form of figure 4 because, again, this is aimed at lengthening the tissue in the back of the buttock. Think of this almost, again, like a rubber band, right? If you were wearing a wetsuit, anytime you pull that tissue in any way, shape, or form that way, you're going to be attempting to lengthen it. The other exercise that people are often prescribed, which lengthens the tissue in this area, would be any form of like hamstring stretch or even nerve glide, right? So doing something like this, or taking a strap and putting it up on your foot and pulling it this way. 3-way rope stretch, maybe you've heard of this, where you put a band up here and you pull it straight up, you pull it across your body, you pull it out to the side. So any form of like IT band stretches or anything like that, again, that is a form of lengthening. All right, so we've got figure 4 stretches, we've got IT band stretches, hamstring stretches, nerve glides, I'm sure there's lots of other stretches, anything that lengthens that area, but those are some of the big ones. The next thing is any form of compression, right? As we talked about earlier, both stretching and compression lengthen the tissue. So whether you're doing some type of foam rolling, I don't know where her tennis ball went, there it is, right? Using a tennis ball, any type of other spiky ball or object that you're constantly sitting on or massaging into the area of pain. This also goes for your thumb, all right? So lots of people want to do what I call poke the angry bear. They're constantly throughout the day just checking in on their symptoms and trying to relieve their pain. But again, it's like you're poking a bruise and you're constantly lengthening that tissue. And so these are some of the things that maybe you've been told to do to relieve your pain, but may actually be keeping you from getting better, all right? So just apply the concept of like, am I doing anything, stretching or compression, that may be lengthening that area and keeping me from healing? And so the other thing that we're going to want to consider is how lengthening is showing up in ways that you maybe don't know, right, throughout your day-to-day life, usually in the form of habits or routines or activities that you're doing. So since she's laying down here, it's possible maybe that this is how you read a book, right, or look at the tablet at night or something like that, all right, a figure 4. Maybe you're a side sleeper, and when you lay on your side, the painful leg, let's just say this leg, for example, or even the bottom leg, right, gets sort of stretched. Again, we've kind of got this figure 4 position, and so it's possible that this yucky motion that hurts so good in the moment is actually showing up in ways that you're not aware of. And so again, how can we prevent these things? Well, we could put a pillow between the leg here. We could put a pillow between both the knee and the ankle to help prevent your leg from falling into that position. And there's many other tweaks, if you will, or modifications to apply to sleeping. But these are some of the things you want to think about. A lot of times people, when they fall asleep too, they like stretch their legs out like this, right? So now you're in like an IT band stretch or a hamstring stretch or something like that. Let's see, what else do? We sit. All right, so when we're sitting, a lot of us just kind of out of habit, what do? We cross our legs, right? So we sit like this, we sit like that, we sit like this or sit like that. Do your little pretzel sit. Can you do that?
Like this.
Oh my Lord. We sit like that, right? And we may not cross it all the way up in this area. We may sit like that. We may just cross at the ankles, right? So some people, they do that. Now you can't see it, but she's crossed at the ankles. Maybe you do that laying in bed too. You cross your legs up, you do something like that, all right? And so these are ways of, again, sort of placing yourself in a pre-tensioned or stretched position, and maybe you're not aware of it. Or maybe you have a habit before you go to bed or, whenever throughout the day where you're sitting on like a lawn chair and your legs are kicked back like that, right? Or maybe you're on like the ottoman or in your recliner, and what is this? This is an L shape, right? So this is, again, a hamstring stretch or something like that. Plus, your legs are crossed over. Your legs are getting heavy, so we're going to let them down. And so that might be another way that it's showing up. So start to think outside the box and ask yourself, okay, if lengthening is something that I'm trying to sort of remove, what are some ways that lengthening, figure 4, hamstring, IT band stretch, are maybe showing up in my life that I may want to start to modify or change to remove, again, the trigger or the act of constantly stretching it throughout the day. And so a simple way that you could better utilize the foam roller or even the tennis ball is not to lengthen the area of your buttock, but to use it as like a little bit of a feedback tool. So what you could do is uncross, and instead of you just trying to have the willpower to be like, don't cross your legs, don't cross your legs, I mean, you could try, you could put a little sticky note up on your computer, on your door, on your mirror, wherever you want to put it, right? But why not just like sit it here while you're working? All right, now I'm going to hold it there, all right? Maybe it's a little weird, right? But now go ahead and try to cross your legs and see what happens. Yeah, it would be super awkward, all right? Maybe another example is maybe you put something like this right there. Go ahead now, cross your legs. That's weird, right? Maybe you put some papers on your lap, you put your cat on your lap, and every time you go to cross your legs, because it's a habit, cat's gonna squeal, ball's gonna roll off, foam roller's gonna go flying, whatever it is. Sometimes having an external cue like that is helpful to remind you maybe not to do that, all right? Final little thing, still in step 1 of removing the trigger, and some ideas to help you do that, is a lot of times when people are standing, I know I do this at the kitchen countertop, we kind of like to thrust our hips out. We like to shift our weight one side or the other. And so that creates length on this side because it pulls the leg further in. You keep shifting side to side, but I think you get the idea, right? If you're standing and you notice that you're constantly weight shifting and putting tension and load on one side of the body, then go ahead and shorten the tissue on the outside of the body by widening your stance. Now, if you were to try to shift your weight, what would that look like? That would be weird, right?
Yeah.
And so notice that just by standing with your feet out further, it makes it really awkward and sort of helps you break the habit because, well, it's just weird to try to do that, all right? So standing with a little bit of a wider stance may be helpful to allow you to break that shifting habit where you may be unknowingly placing tension or length on a painful piriformis or glute muscle. So that is the end of step 1. On to step 2. Measure. As the old saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. So how do you know if what you're doing is working or not working? You've got to objectify it, right? And a lot of times when we're in pain, we tend to be very emotional. We want to objectify what we're feeling. So call it piriformis syndrome, call it deep gluteal syndrome, call it hip bursitis, a back problem, whatever. I want you to ask yourself, how is that showing up in my life in the sense of what motions are yucky or problematic? So I'll give you some tips here. We want to find one yucky motion, one motion that reproduces our butt pain, leg pain, sciatica, whatever you're dealing with. And then we want to objectify. We want to put some number to it, right? As you can imagine, it would be difficult to tell if you're losing weight if you don't have a scale. It would be tough to keep track of blood pressure if you didn't have a blood pressure cuff, so on and so forth. So this is our cuff. This is how we're going to get a baseline measurement to see if this process of shortening or tightening the piriformis will help you immediately, by the way, or not. All right, so 3 common yucky motions for folks who have piriformis syndrome pain in the butt would be, number 1, on your painful side, a figure 4, and we talked about this earlier. So just get in this position, and you would just ask yourself, is this yucky or is it yummy? Is it yucky or is it not? And if it is yucky, then you want to ask yourself, how yucky is it? So is it low yucky? Is it medium yucky? Or is it high yucky? And when I say low yucky, we'll give it a score. Is it 10, 20, or 30? The higher the number, worse it is. If it's medium, it's a 40, 50, 60. And if it's high, it's a 70, 80, 90. All right, so is this motion yucky?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And how yucky is it? Is it low, medium, or high?
Low.
And is it a 10, 20, or 30?
30.
30. So now she's got a yucky motion that she found, something that reproduces her problem as a baseline. She's stepping on the scale right now, all right? And she's got a 30 of the right figure 4. Now, let's just say this wasn't yucky. Maybe you're watching this, you know of a motion that's yucky or an activity that's yucky. Do it one time and get a baseline read on what it feels like, all right? So the next motion that's commonly yucky would be a leg raise. So go ahead, straighten the leg out, raise it up. Perfect, all right? So you can do a leg raise motion, and oftentimes this causes a little bit of length in your tension on the sciatic nerve and the muscles in the back of the leg, which might be sensitive and causes some yuckiness, all right? Now, if that was yucky, again, I'd say score it. Is it low, medium, or high? And give it some number. Now, if neither of those are yucky, we've got a third option, which is commonly problematic for people with a pain in the butt, and it would be what we call a rotation extension test, all right? So what I'm gonna have you do is, if the pain is on the right side, what I'm gonna have you do is twist to the right in standing first, and then bend straight backwards. Good. Now, if the pain is on the other side, you can twist to the other side and go straight backwards, or you can try both. The whole idea is that we're just trying to find something that sort of makes the brake squeak or triggers your symptoms, right? And again, if that was yucky, then you would say how yucky, low, medium, or high, and you would give it some number, all right? And if none of these motions were yucky, then go ahead and find something for you that was yucky and give it a score, low, medium, high. Put some number to it, objectify. It could be going up the stairs. It could be squatting. It could be doing a lunge. It could be jumping on one leg. It could be bending over to feed the cat, right? It could be anything. And so just find a yucky motion and then objectify it or score it. We need to measure, because again, we can't manage what we don't measure. That is step number 2. And so step 3 is to begin tightening or shortening. So instead of trying to lengthen the tissue in your buttock, pull tissue further apart, we can actually bring it closer together by doing certain exercises. Now, I'm going to show you 2 exercises. Keep in mind, these exercises may or may not work for you, but the most important nugget that I want you to pull from this video is the process. I'm going to show you exactly how to, from step 2, take what you tested, take what you measured, take what you found is a yucky motion, whatever score or however yucky it was, and then see if you can improve it immediately here using the process I'm about to show you. And then you can take this concept of lengthening versus shortening, or tightening if you want to call it that, and apply it to the exercise program that you might currently be prescribed. And or if you're interested in working with me to help you figure out what that might be, you can click the link below to set up a time to chat and submit a case for review. Now, the first exercise, a lot of people call it a clamshell. I call it figure 4 strength. It's just basically the opposite of the stretch. So you're going to lay on your side, you're going to open up, and you're just going to see, first off, is it yucky or is it yummy? By the way, one way to know this exercise is not something that you want to do is if it is painful. If it reproduces the pain in your butt, if it's problematic, if it shoots pain, numbness, tingling going down your leg, don't do it. Now, one caveat before I actually go through with this is that this clamshell or figure 4 strength motion is actually kind of 2 independent motions. Same motion, but you've got a right and you've got a left side. So we need to test it out to figure out if it's going to work for you. All right, so step 1, the motion has to be safe. So we'll go ahead and we'll say, all right, can you do that? Number 1. And does it feel safe, problematic, or does it feel yummy? Yes, it feels safe. It feels good. It's yummy. Okay, if it was painful or problematic, if it was a yucky motion, you don't do it. I want to be very clear about it. Now, let's just say for her it was safe, and maybe for you it is as well. All right, so regardless of if this is your painful side or not, in her case it was, don't rule out the possibility that it could help you. So if your right side's painful, then this may help you. It may not help you. If your left side is painful, then yes, it is possible just doing the right side could also help the left side, all right? We need to test these things out, and this is the process to do it, all right? So it was yummy for her. It was safe. If it isn't, get rid of it. We'll go on to the next one, all right? But in her case, it felt good. So let's go ahead and let's do it for me. So lift it on up. Hold that motion. A lot of times I'll have people put their hand here because they'll notice that they want to rock back when they do it. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to hold it here, raise up as high as you can until the point where you start to kind of rock back. You can also use a band, by the way. If this is super easy and you notice you're holding this exercise, by the way, we're doing holds, we're not doing reps, and I would recommend that. Go ahead and lift it on up. All right. So we're going to do 3 holds, assuming it's safe and it's yummy, until you're tired. You'll feel buttocks burning. You'll feel maybe some, work on the outside of your leg. Pretty tired?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. And so give me one more set for a total of 3 holds in this figure 4 strength position until you're fatigued or until you're tired. And the reason I recommend holds is because these deep muscles in the buttock are a little bit more endurance-based, and so I like to work holds versus work reps, just in case you're wondering. So we just did 3 holds until she was tired on this right side. We did it, number 1, knowing it was a safe, feel good, not hurt so good motion, and now we're gonna go retest. So we're gonna go back to step 2, all right? And this is the value of the entire process, all right? So go back to step 2. What did she have as her yucky motion, and how yucky was it? It was a figure 4 on the right, and it was a 30 out of 100, a low on the yucky scale. So go ahead and retest it, and we want to see, do things feel same, better, or worse? So go ahead and retest whatever your yucky motion was after performing that first exercise. Are things same, better, or worse?
Worse.
Okay, so if the motion that you just did made you feel worse, but Charlie, I've been stretching and strengthening. Someone told me that my glutes need to be strong. I don't care. The motion felt safe, but it made you worse immediately. All right, if the motion felt the same just for the sake of this video, guess what? It didn't work either, and we'll move to the next thing. If it made you feel better, then stop. This is the exercise that you would use and you would go home with. You would do 3 holds until you're tired, and you could just say maybe a couple times a day. No need, by the way, let me clarify, no need to do the other side, the left side. So we don't need to do exercises on both sides of the body. You're not going to walk around in circles. You're going to be all right. Okay, and so if you found this made you better, meaning not made you better subjectively, objectively made your yucky motion immediately better in the moment, you stop, you bottle this up, you take this movement as medicine, you do it at home. No need to continue on to the next ones. But let's just say that this didn't change your yucky motion the same, or it made the yucky motion more yucky. Well, we're gonna move to the next side. Remember I said this figure 4 strength or clamshell is really 2 sort of exercises, if you will, because we've got the right and left side of the body within one. So let's go ahead and let's roll to the laying on the right side. All right, so now she just did a flipperoo. The pillow's down here, so she's laying on her right side. Now she's working her left side. And so what she's going to do, even though her symptoms are on her right, it is possible that doing this exercise on the left side could help her, and it could help you if you're watching this. So don't discount it, all right? So again, we would go ahead, we just go up briefly, hand here so she's not rolling, and we would see, is it yucky or is it yummy? That's the first step. It's got to feel safe. Remember, we're not doing hurt so good motions to try to feel good.
Yucky.
It's yucky. We're not going to do that. So if it were yummy, then we could go and we could do 3 sets of holds until you're tired. And then what would we do? We would retest her figure 4 right in this case, or retest your yucky motion. All right. But again, because it's yucky, we're not going to do that. If it's not, if it's yummy, then just apply the same concept and process we went through. So that is the figure 4 strength or clamshell. Now I'm going to show you one more. I'll actually have her flip around for this because it's easier to show you. And it's pretty straightforward. You might even be doing it now, but because you're not applying this process, you don't know if it's working for you or not. Can you flip your head down there, please? And we will do a bridge, which is really just kicking into the table and moving your body backwards from a lying on your back position. All right, so go ahead and, again, we're going to test this to make sure it's safe. Go ahead and lift it on up. Hold for just a couple seconds. Does it feel yucky or yummy?
Yummy.
Yummy. So we know it's an option. But just because a motion's yummy doesn't mean it's going to help you out. We have to plug it into this test, treat, retest process. Awesome. So now go ahead, let's go up and hold. And we're going to do 3 holds again. I prefer the holds because of these muscles being more endurance-based versus reps. I prefer holds for another reason. Also, you're not going in and out of the motion, which tends to reduce some like form flaws that we see. Right? So you're going to go up, you're going to lift it up, you're going to hold 3 sets until you're tired. You'll feel your butt, maybe your hamstrings, and your lower back working or burning. That's okay. Again, the idea is that this is tightening or bringing the tissue closer together versus the opposite would be, drop it down for a second, the opposite of doing a bridge, lengthening this tissue, hamstring stretch. What is the opposite of that? If you do a bridge, you bring the tissue closer together. And so you do 3 holds until you're tired. So that was 3? All right, okay. And now what do we do to see if this is something that's going to help you? We retest. What do we retest? We retest your yucky motion. So go ahead and retest that figure 4 right. Things same, better, worse? Better, cool. Then this would be the one that she would go home with. And so in this case, unlike the figure 4 strength that she did on the right side, remember that made her worse, and then she did the left one, and that one was yucky to begin with, right? This one makes her yucky motion immediately better. So not only is the bridge safe for her, not yucky, yummy, not only does it tighten or bring the tissue closer together versus lengthen it, but it's also something that we prove works for her. And you can prove the same following this process. So she did it, it felt safe. She retested and found that her motion immediately felt less yucky. She noted improvement in her movement experience. So she would bottle this up, she would take it home, use this movement as medicine, 3 holds until she was fatigued. We'll just say twice a day as a generic prescription to start. And guess what? This is the only exercise that she's doing. And that's the beauty of the process. You can identify what works for you, what's a waste of time, what makes you worse. And think about it like this. If you were to go to a physician and get some medicine for something you were dealing with, and the medicine proved to help you, would you just say, you know what, I need other medicines? You wouldn't, right? The goal is to do as much as needed, as little as necessary to get the result. In this case, this feels safe and it works for her in the moment. So this 3-step process helps her arrive at the conclusion that, hey, you know what, maybe I am overstretched. Maybe I have been trying to lengthen the tissue in my buttock and it hasn't been working. What's the opposite of lengthening? Shortening. What's the opposite of hasn't worked? Well, it worked, all right? And so I know that logic is like mind-blowing. It's just doing the opposite of what hasn't helped you, all right? And this is what it would look like via a simple 3-step process to tighten a possible overstretch or repetitively lengthen buttock, piriformis, glute muscle area. All right, so hopefully this was helpful. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. And again, if you're going through this process, there's many different exercises, so it's hard to give you the one that's going to work for you. These are just some common ones or classic ones that people may be doing. If you're watching this video, chances are you've been told to do bridges or something like that, but maybe you never knew why you're doing them or the process to find out if they were valuable for you, a waste of time, or something you should be avoiding. And so you can plug any different exercise into this process to prove immediately if it's something that's valuable for you. All right, so let me know if you need some help with that. We work with people all around the world dealing with back, butt, or sciatica problems. just click the link below to set up a time to chat with us and submit a detailed case review. This gives me all the answers to questions that I may have about what you're dealing with so that I can determine if we can help and what that might look like. All right, so thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments.